Welcome back to From the Bookshelf for another book club episode. We are in the final run of our City of Bones book series. We have one more episode after this to discuss. Today we'll be looking at chapter 22 and we'll be finishing it on the next episode. So super excited. I can't wait to get this one finished and then we can move on to the next book. I will be letting you know what we'll be talking about next week, or what our new book will be after that. So before we get started, don't forget to like, comment, and of course subscribe to the channel so you can get notified for any new book club episodes, as well as the weekly download and anything else new going on the channel. So let's get started with chapter 22, Renwick's Run. That is a hard one to say. Renwick's Run. We're going to be starting on page 405. So there's two things on this page that I wanted to talk about. Luke, speaking about Valentine, says, "He wasn't evil to begin with," Luke said, sounding almost apologetic. "Oh, I beg to differ. I think he was clearly evil. All that stuff he was spouting about keeping the human race pure and the importance of untainted blood. He was like one of those creepy white power guys, and you two totally fell for it." Well, in a sense, yes. However, I don't think Valentine was like that to start with. I think he started spouting that sentiment after his father died. It was more about making the Shadowhunters themselves more powerful and stronger, and to be able to keep the Shadowhunter world going, to protect the mortal world and the down world. And I think that's what the Circle and Valentine were about before his father was killed by werewolves, and Valentine literally flipped the script and became, who he was when he's talking about keeping the bloodlines pure and destroying all of Downworld and all Downworlders. And I think that isn't something he started out with, and Clary is just kind of overlooking the part of the story that Valentine is telling this, because it's clear to see if you read it. We talked about this in the previous episode, all of these different aspects of that. And I think Clary is only hearing what she wants to hear. And it's like, Valentine is evil. To her, he is like the epitome of evil. And she doesn't want to hear anything else, anything different. So I think that's just, Clary's mindset. She's very hard-headed in that sense. So Luke says this. "I wasn't the one talking about slimy Downworlders just minutes ago," Luke said quietly. "Or about how they couldn't be trusted. That's not the same thing." Clary could hear tears in her eyes. "I had a brother," she went on, her voice catching. "Grandparents too. They're dead." So Clary is saying, me hating Downworlders to hate Downworlders isn't the same thing as what Valentine was doing. It wasn't the same thing. However, it was the same thing. Clary, of course, Clary wasn't saying it because she was being hateful and she hated Downworlders. She was saying it because she was mad at Luke, right? But the fact that she's trying to say that this hate for hate's sake isn't the same thing as what Valentine's doing, it's also not right. It's the same thing. If you're actually hating Downworlders simply because they're Downworlders, then yes, it's the same thing as what Valentine's doing. Even if you're not killing Downworlders as a result, that hate is still the same. Even if the outcome isn't the same. But I also don't believe that Clary hates Downworlders because they're Downworlders. I think she was just mad at Luke because Luke was being a jerk towards her, even if he was doing it to protect her. Still, you shouldn't be a jerk and expect someone not to get mad at you, even if you're doing it for good reasons. So let's move on to page 406. So Clary is talking about the Hodge's bird, Hugo, which was actually Valentine's bird, and Luke is saying Hodge must have taken him in after the uprising, but he was still, loyal to Valentine, the bird that is, Hugo. So just like Hodge was, Clary said, So she says like Hodge was Valentine's creature, but and that he was loyal to Valentine. I don't think he's loyal to Valentine. I don't think after the uprising he was loyal to Valentine. I think he stopped being loyal to Valentine. I think his actions and what he did had more to do with the curse that the Clave, the Shadowhunter government, put on him, and less to do with him being loyal to Valentine. He had been living for what, like 15 years with a curse that made it so he couldn't leave the Institute ever. Like if he stepped outside, like a foot outside the Institute, he'd die. So I think his actions and giving the cup to Valentine had less to do with his loyalty to Valentine and more to do with him being sick of being treated the way he was by his own people, by the government and the people who lead his people. And I think that's what it was about. And Clary's just too much set in her thinking and what she thinks to actually see this. So let's move on to the next. So page 409. So Clary is talking to Luke about Valentine, and she says this. If we catch Valentine, she asked abruptly, can we kill him? Luke nearly dropped the bandages. What? She fiddled with the stray thread poking out of the pocket of her jeans. He killed my older brother. He killed my grandparents, didn't he? Luke set the bandages on the table and pulled his shirt down. Are you thinking, and do you think killing him will what? Ease those things? Erase those things? Can't read today. So in this we see Clary's thinking that, oh, if we catch Valentine, we're gonna kill him, right? And Luke is shocked. And her response to this is, well, he's a murderer, so shouldn't we kill him? Shouldn't we just kill him? So your response to somebody being a murderer is to become a murderer? Because unless he's actively trying to kill you, killing him would be murder. Even if he's a bad guy. It's like, if he's not actively trying to murder you or murder someone else, then you should capture him and give him over to the authorities. You shouldn't outright just want to murder him. Like, I get it. You had a brother you didn't know. You had grandparents you never knew. But killing Valentine isn't going to bring that back. And it's just going to make you feel like you've done something wrong. That you're the bad guy. Right? At least that's how I feel. And it's like Clary here is just going a little overboard with this. Let's get rid of Valentine because he's so evil. Like, he is. But I think there's also more to him than that. But I also think Clary is just like taking it a little too far. So let's move on to page 412. So Luke is talking about the building that they're in. Has a phone number showing that they're like a Chinese restaurant, but they don't usually answer it. And then and it says we just don't answer it much, talking about the phone. Sometimes if they're bored, some of the cubs will deliver some Mushu pork. Is that all they delivered? They like only sell Mushu pork? Is that like all you can get? I mean, they're a Chinese restaurant, right? But you only sell Mushu pork? Like, is that all you give them? You don't have anything else? I mean, I can imagine you're not going to give them any calls if you're literally like, oh, what can we get you? We only have Mushu pork, though. I don't know. I just find that interesting. Like, don't answer it, or maybe have a few more options. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. Let's go to page 415. So Clary and Luke are getting into Luke's truck to go out to Renwick's. And Clary says to him, well, you can go ahead and hang your head out of the car window if you feel like it. Luke laughed. I'm a werewolf, not a golden retriever. How long have you been the clan leader? She asked abruptly. Luke hesitated. About a week. So Clary tells him, you can go ahead, hang your head out the car window. You know how most dogs are. They like to stick their head out of the window when they're driving in the car. And while he makes that comment, I'm a werewolf, not a golden retriever. But honestly, I get this feeling that Luke would have loved to stick his head out the window and to just like feel the breeze in his hair. I don't know. It just feels like something Luke would want to do. Like the way he laughs at it. Like I guess he knows it's a joke and she's making a joke, but I also feel like it's true. So let's go to page 419. So the werewolves and Clary get to Runwick's and the Forsaken are there because Valentine has like all of these Forsaken, right? So he's there with the Forsaken, and the werewolves are attacking them and biting them and all of that. And Clary thinks this. She thinks this. Clary found herself wondering if the Forsaken were edible. I don't know why, but that makes me think, is Clary wondering about cannibalism here? Or like, does she think like, are the werewolves going to eat the Forsaken? Because in a sense, like, while werewolves are also, you know, wolves, they're also humans. They're not just wolves, they're human beings as well. The Forsaken are human beings as well. So the werewolves eating Forsaken is basically cannibalism, right? And it seems strange that that's what Clary's thinking of. She's thinking of cannibalism. You know? I don't know. It's like, Clary, why would you think? Like, I don't know. It just seems like in a moment like that, she might have something else to think about rather than eating the Forsaken. So let's move on to page 421. So Luke is going to attack the Forsaken, and Alaric, his second in command, is taking Clary to the building, and he's telling her, don't look. And of course Clary looks, and he says, I told you not to look, Alaric growled, turning so that her line of sight was blocked by his looming bulk. They were racing up the steps now, the sound of his clawed feet scraping the granite like nails on blackboard. So he tells a teenage girl not to look at something, and then he's surprised when she looks at something that he told her not to. Like, you must not know a lot of teenage girls, because the second you tell one not to do something, they're gonna do that something. I mean, I don't know how many times someone is like, okay, don't look behind you, don't turn around, and the first thing they do is, right? I mean, right? So why so surprised? And then a little ways down the page, down near the bottom, we see Gretel, who we met earlier in the chapter, who is one of Luke's top werewolves, is killed by one of the Forsaken. And Clary's upset, right? Because she has feelings like a normal person. But Luke says she was only a downworlder. Don't say that, is Clary's response. I see. He turns to Alaric. Thank you for taking care of her. So I feel like Luke is being a little mean here. Like, it's back to this moment when Clary made that slimy downworlder remark, and he's still like holding it against her when clearly that had nothing to do with him being a downworlder and everything to do with the way he was treating her prior in the book. Like during the beginning of the book, up until that moment when they meet up again, like he was treating her horribly. She felt like he wanted nothing to do with her. He wanted nothing to do with her mother, and he was turning her back on her. And that's what that moment had to do with. She was calling him names and being rude to him because he'd hurt her. And here he is throwing that in her face like she's this horrible person. It's like, Luke, knock it off. You're just being a jerk for literally no reason. Like, she doesn't think downworlds are bad. And I feel like he knows this. And he's just, I don't know why he would throw it in her face. Like, he supposedly loves her like a daughter. And here he is throwing all of this in her face. Is it just because now she knows she's a shadow hunter, she's all of a sudden like bad? Nah. All right, so 423. So Clary is getting a little upset with Luke about saying Gretel was only a downworlder. And you know, that I don't think that, she doesn't think that. And he says, I'm glad to hear it. He reached for the torch in its metal holder. I hated the idea of the Lightwoods turning you into a copy of them. Well, they haven't. So we saw previously Clary defending the Lightwoods, saying they're not like that. They don't hate downworlders just because they're downworlders. And now here she is in another moment where Luke is basically saying that, and she's not defending him this time. She's basically saying, well, they haven't. Like, she agrees with them. I don't think the Lightwoods hate Downworlders, at least not the Lightwoods we know. We haven't met Maris and Robert yet at this point in the series, so I don't feel like we can really add them to the Lightwoods that Clary knows. She's only heard secondhand stories, and I don't think secondhand stories are fair. Like, when you're hearing something as a secondhand story from this person, even though they lived that experience, it's just their point of view. It's like, you know how they say that there's always 3 sides to every story, like, you know, his, hers, and the truth. And that's what I feel it is. Like, we don't really know enough outside of Valentine's and Luke's perspectives of Maris and Robert to really get an idea of who they are. But if we're looking at Alec and Isabel, I don't think they hate Downworlders. And we see that with Izzy. Like, she's a bit obnoxious so far in the books, and she does have this like warped look at Downworld, but she doesn't hate them. She dates them a lot, she has fun with them a lot, but she doesn't necessarily hate them. And Alec, I don't know, he's just uptight, but I don't think he hates anybody. And I think it's unfair of Clary not to defend them again, because they're supposedly her friends. Like, she cares about them and she likes them to an extent, but the point is like, she defended them like the day before, but now she's like, just like, oh yeah, I'm not like that. They might be like that, but I'm like that, in the sense that she says, oh, they haven't, implying that they're like that. But Clary just previously, a couple chapters before, was like, they're not like that, and now she's like agreeing, oh, they're like that. So I don't know, I just think it's unfair of Luke to judge the Lightwoods that way, since he doesn't know this version of the Lightwoods, and it's unfair of Clary not to defend them when she already has previously. But that's just my opinion. And then we're going to go to page 433 for the last thing in this section. So we finally see Jace again. He's alive and well. And he's telling Clary that his father's alive. And he says this: I've seen my father, said Jace. I've talked to him. He gave me this. He tugged on the new clean shirt as if it were inelucidable proof. My father isn't dead. Valentine didn't kill him. Hodge lied to me. All these years I thought he was dead, but he wasn't. Hodge lied to you? I hate to tell you this, Jace, but if Valentine is your father, then he pretended to die. He faked his own death to let you believe it. It had nothing to do with Hodge. Valentine faked his own death himself. Like, he did that all on his own. It's got my mind blank. But it's like, we're blaming Hodge for him faking his own death. Like, he had nothing to do with that. Like, and it's just weird. Like, Hodge lied about your father being dead because your father faked his own death. Okay. I don't know at what point Hodge realized Valentine wasn't dead, but I'm sure there was a few years in there that he probably believed it, because Jace believed it. But I don't know, just this idea that Hodge lied about everything, it's just Valentine's BS that he's able to convince anybody of anything, basically. Even Jace. That's all we're going to talk about in this episode, because the next chapter is fairly long, so I don't want to get that started right now. But next episode will be our finale of City of Bones. We will be going through chapter 23 as well as the epilogue. So don't forget to let me know what you thought, your comments, what you agreed with, didn't agree with, if there's anything I missed. Let me know. I'd love to hear it. And until next time.